You ever wonder what secrets your neighbors are hiding behind their neatly painted fences and smiling hellos? Because I did. And it nearly destroyed everything I thought I knew about family, trust, and love. My name's Eli Whitaker, 35 years old, born and raised in a dusty little town called Hollow Creek, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. A quiet place where folks know your dog's name, where gossip spreads faster than wildfires in July, and where nothing truly interesting ever seems to happen until it does. To most, I'm just that guy who runs the local auto repair shop on Maple Street. Grease-stained hands, flannel shirts year-round, and a worn-out Dodgers cap that's been through more oil changes than I can count. I live in a small A-frame cabin I built with my own hands, nestled against the tree line near the creek. Simple life, honest work, no spotlight. But there's something most people in Hollow Creek don't know about me. Something I've never told anyone. 10 years ago, after a customer paid me in a random stack of old comic books, I stumbled into a bizarre hidden hobby. Rare collectible flipping. Yeah, laugh all you want. But over time, I started buying, trading, and eventually auctioning rare vintage items comics. Coins, watches, even a Picasso sketch I found mispriced in a dusty Tennessee estate sale. I got good at it. So good that I built a small fortune behind the scenes, carefully tucked away in investment portfolios. Crypto wallets and safe deposit boxes in 2 states. No one, not even my family, knew, and I intended to keep it that way till she came back. It was October 28th when it all began. Remember the date because the leaves were just turning blood orange, and the local diners switched their chalkboard sign to advertise Ethel's famous turkey pot pie, which only meant one thing. Thanksgiving was close. I was under a '72 Mustang, swapping a busted suspension, when my phone vibrated. I wiped my hands on a rag and glanced at the screen. Mom. I hesitated. We hadn't spoken in weeks. It's not because we fought, but because we just existed apart. Ever since my younger brother Nathan moved to Charlotte and became the self-appointed golden boy of the family. Conversations with our folks got shorter, colder, less real. Still, I answered, "Hey, Ma." "Eli, honey." Her voice crackled like the leaves outside, soft but off. I wanted to call before things got too close to the holidays. I slid out from under the car, brow furrowed. "Everything okay?" She hesitated. We're doing something a little different this year. Nathan's girlfriend, Savannah, is hosting Thanksgiving at her place in the city. It's going to be kind of fancy. And you don't want me there. I said it flat, not angry, just tired. She sighed. "It's not that, sweetie. Savannah's parents are coming. Their old Southern money, very proper. And Nathan thinks maybe a small formal dinner would be better for first impressions. He says he doesn't want you to feel uncomfortable." I stared at the wall in front of me. There was a spider building a web in the corner, minding its business. Maybe I envied it. "So he thinks I'd embarrass him," I said, "because I wear boots and change oil." No, Eli," she scrambled. "But the damage was done. It's just different worlds, you know?" I laughed, not out of humor. More like something broke loose inside me. "Yeah, Ma. I know exactly what kind of world he wants to live in." She sniffled. "I'll make a plate for you. We'll stop by after, okay?" But I'd already hung up. That night, I sat on my porch, the cold air biting at my knuckles. On the little wooden table beside me was a wrapped leather journal for Mom and a baseball card set I found at a collectibles convention for Dad. I'd spent weeks picking those gifts, trying to make this Thanksgiving feel like old times. Guess old times are dead now. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 2 days later, when I checked my phone and saw Nathan's Instagram story. There he was, dressed like a Macy's catalog model, standing next to a tall, elegant woman in a red silk dress. Her hair swept up in a bun, her smile composed like she practiced it in a mirror. I dropped my coffee. I knew her. Savannah wasn't just some girl from the city. She was Savannah Pierce, my first love, my secret heartbreak, and the woman who taught me everything I know about investment flipping. 12 years ago, before she became Charlotte's high society darling, she was just a waitress at the Broken Spoon. With a worn-out economics degree and dreams that burned hotter than the Carolina sun, we met when I came in to grab a coffee and ended up helping her fix a flickering light in the back hallway. One conversation led to another, then more. the nights sitting on her rooftop with spreadsheets and stars. She taught me how to spot undervalued items, when to flip, when to hold. You don't have to be rich to build wealth, she said once, legs crossed over an old fire escape. You just have to be smarter than the crowd. We never officially dated. It was something deeper, messier. She moved to the city after landing a gig with a private equity firm, and we drifted apart. I never forgot her. Thought she forgot me. Until now. And now she was with Nathan. The brother who once laughed at me for buying a vintage Pepsi-Cola sign from a yard sale. The brother who called me a junk-collecting redneck, behind my back. Suddenly, he was dating the woman who built my secret world. No one knew the connection. Not my parents. Not Nathan. And definitely not Savannah. Or did she? That night, I sat in the dark, scrolling through more photos. Savannah was there, her hand on Nathan's arm, smiling at my parents like she belonged. And I couldn't shake the question, was this fate or sabotage? I decided to find out. But first, I had to go back to the one place I never thought I would. Charlotte. The drive to Charlotte felt like dragging a past I'd tried to bury behind my pickup truck. 3 hours of winding highways and half-finished thoughts. Country radio murmured in the background, but all I could hear was Savannah's laugh echoing through my memory, soft, smart, unshakable. And now she was with Nathan? Oh, something wasn't right. When I reached the city, I didn't call anyone. I didn't even check into a hotel. I parked near South End, tossed on my cleanest flannel, and walked straight to the only place I knew might still remember me. Merrow's Market. It was where Savannah used to work nights to pay off her student loans. They sold burnt coffee and the best pecan pie south of the Mason-Dixon. More importantly, it was where she and I had once planned a fake business just for fun, buying up small town, estate sales and flipping vintage signage. I stepped through the door, and the scent of cinnamon and pine needles hit me like a forgotten dream. It remodeled, added shiny new lights and fancy espresso machines. But the bones were still the same. "Can I help you?" the girl behind the counter asked, eyes glued to her tablet. "Yeah," I said, leaning in slightly. "Does Savannah Pierce still come in here?" Looked up. You mean Savannah Prescott?" I blinked. She changed her name. The girl nodded. "Yup, got engaged. Super fancy. Comes in once in a while, usually after yoga, drinks a gross green thing and stares at spreadsheets." My throat tightened. Engaged. Before I could respond, the bell above the door jingled. And there she was. Wearing a navy peacoat and high heels like she was born to command attention. Her hair was still that perfect stormy brown, pinned up in a clean twist. She was mid-sentence on a phone call, laughing politely at something, then paused, eyes locking on me like she'd seen a ghost. She hung up slowly. "Eli," she said, voice sharp with surprise and something else I couldn't name. "Hey, Vanna," I replied. "Didn't think I'd run into you here." She walked toward me slowly, eyes scanning my face like she wasn't sure I was real. "You're not exactly the pop into Charlotte for coffee type." "I could say the same about you and pumpkin patches," I replied. She cracked a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You saw, didn't you?" she said after a pause. "The pictures, me and Nathan," I nodded. "You too serious?" Her expression changed. For a split second, I saw doubt flicker across her features. "It's complicated, isn't it always?" I said, my voice more bitter than I meant. We found a quiet table in the corner, same one we used to sit at when the place still had duct-tape chairs and bad lighting. She ordered matcha. I got black coffee. I leaned in. "Does he know about us?" she asked. "No, about the business." Her lips parted, then shut again. I didn't say anything. "Not to him, not to your parents. I've kept your secret, Eli." My eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here with him?" She stared into her cup for a long time before answering. "I didn't plan for this. It started simple. I met Nathan at a gala. He said he was from Hollow Creek. We talked about growing up in small towns. He was charming, ambitious. I didn't even realize he was your brother until 2 weeks in, and then I asked." She exhaled. "I didn't tell him, I should have. But part of me was curious about what he'd say about you. And he did talk." "What?" I gritted my teeth. "Let me guess. The jokes? The plumber jabs? The backwater junk collector speech?" She nodded. "I didn't laugh, Eli. I didn't think it was funny, but you stayed." "I told myself it didn't matter," she said, her voice tight. The people exaggerate when they talk about their families. I didn't know how cruel he could be. Not until I spent Thanksgiving with him and your parents. Something in her tone shifted. I heard everything, Eli, she said, her eyes finally meeting mine. The way your mom said you've always been difficult, how Nathan said you couldn't even hold a conversation with real people, like you were beneath them. I clenched my fists under the table. She leaned closer. I nearly left that night, wanted to scream at them. But then your mom handed me a box of gift. My heart sank. The leather journal, she nodded. She said it was from you, that you bought it weeks ago. And she said he always tries, but he just doesn't understand how the world works. I swallowed hard. So now what? Savannah looked outside at the city traffic, her eyes distant. I told Nathan I needed time. I told him I wasn't ready to get married. He's been calling every day, but I can't do it. Not after what I know. I leaned back in my chair, silence hanging between us. Then I said something I hadn't planned on. Come back to Hollow Creek. She blinked. What? Just for a weekend. See the life I actually live? Not the version Nathan paints. Not the fantasy you maybe hoped I'd become. Just me. The real Eli. Her jaw tightened, unsure. I continued, You owe me nothing. But I want you to see what you helped me build. She was quiet for a long time. Then finally, softly, she said, Okay. 2 days later, Savannah stood on my porch in jeans and a windbreaker, her hair pulled back into a casual ponytail. She looked out of place, but not uncomfortable. Smells like pine and gasoline, she said, stepping inside. Welcome to paradise, I replied. I showed her everything. The side room where I cataloged rare collectibles, the safe tucked behind my bookshelf, the spreadsheets, the journals, the growing real estate files on rural cabins I was buying and renting out under an LLC. Her eyes widened. Eli, this is a small empire, I smiled, built on oil changes and eBay auctions. We spent the weekend eating grilled cheese sandwiches, listening to vinyl records, walking by the creek. And one night, while sitting on the roof of my workshop under a blanket of stars, she turned to me and whispered, I wish I'd never left. I didn't respond. Just looked at her, and for the first time in years, the silence between us didn't hurt. But peace never lasts in Hollow Creek. Not when secrets rot in the roots. On Monday morning, I got a voicemail. Nathan. His voice was trembling, furious. I know where she went, Eli. I know what you're doing. You think this is funny? You think you can steal her and just get away with it? He paused, then said something that chilled me to the bone. Hope you enjoyed your little vacation, 'cause I'm coming and I'm bringing the truth with me. The message ended. I stared at my phone for a long time, 'cause Nathan didn't know the truth. Not the one I'd buried. The one Savannah never asked about. Not the one that started the night she left Hollow Creek 12 years ago. And if that truth came out, this entire town might never look at me the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Nathan's voicemail echoed in my head like a freight train on rusted tracks. He was angry. No, he was dangerous. Not in the way of fists or fury, but in the way that only people with fake smiles and deep insecurities can be. People like my brother didn't need weapons. They used words, reputation, manipulation. And he knew just enough about the past to burn everything to the ground. Savannah noticed I was quiet as we drank coffee on the porch the next morning. The fog rolled low over the creek, and the air smelled like pine and charcoal. You okay? She asked, wrapping her hands around her mug. I didn't answer right away. I got a message from Nathan, I said finally. Her eyes flicked toward me. I figured he says he's coming here. She didn't flinch. Let him. I'm not sure you understand, I said, looking out over the trees. Nathan doesn't let go. Ever. Not grudges, not lies. And if he figures out what happened the night you left. She blinked. What are you talking about, Eli? I exhaled slowly. Maybe it was time to tell her. Maybe it was too late not to. 12 years ago, the night Savannah left Hollow Creek, something broke in me. Not because she left we'd always known she had bigger dreams, but because of what she left behind. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a ring. It was something worse. It was Nathan. Back then, Nathan was still in high school. Riding the coattails of my reputation and borrowing money, I didn't have to help him fit in with the rich kids at school. He'd flunked 2 classes, gotten caught stealing liquor, and crashed my old Honda into a telephone pole while drunk. And when Savannah left, Nathan blamed me, said I wasn't good enough, said she needed someone real, someone who could actually get her out. We fought hard. But what no one knew was that the night Savannah left, Nathan came back to the cabin. He was drunk, furious, talking crazy, started tearing through the house, shouting, breaking things. He grabbed my old shotgun off the mantel just to scare me, he said. I didn't wait to find out. I tackled him. The gun went off. Didn't hit anyone. But the blast blew a hole through the kitchen wall and sent both of us flying. The cops came. I told them it was an accident. Said I'd been cleaning the gun. Nathan was too dazed to argue. Our mom bailed him out from the hospital and hushed it all up. But after that night, I knew I couldn't trust him. Neither could the town if they ever found out what really happened. I told Savannah all of this. Every word. She sat there in stunned silence, her eyes locked on mine. You never told anyone? She whispered. I shook my head. Never. I didn't want to ruin his life or yours. She reached for my hand. You protected him, even after he turned his back on you. Yeah, well, I said with a weak smile. That's kind of my thing. She didn't speak again for a long time. Then finally, Eli. He doesn't deserve your silence. But it wasn't about deserving. It never was. It was about keeping peace. It's about keeping my life. Mine, until now. Because Nathan was on his way. If he was bringing truth, there was a good chance he'd try to flip that story to make me look like a monster. And in a town like Hollow Creek, perception was reality. Savannah stood. Then we need to be ready. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I would. I called the one man who always kept his head down but never looked away, Sheriff Walter Dean. He was a tough, broad man in his 60s, with eyes like steel and a voice like a busted muffler. He'd been around the night of the gunshot, took my statement, shook his head, and buried the file in a drawer. When I told him Nathan was coming back, the sheriff didn't seem surprised. Heard he made a name for himself, he said. It's big city, big money, big mouth. Yeah, I replied. But if he starts throwing dirt, the sheriff grunted. You worried he's going to spin the story? I'm worried he's going to rewrite it. There was a long pause. Then he said, come by the station. Let's get a statement on file, your side of things, just in case. But felt like tying a life vest you hoped you'd never use. Savannah spent the evening helping me organize receipts, files, evidence, anything that could back up my life. She wasn't just helping me prep for a showdown. She was standing beside me in the storm. That night, as we stood in the workshop surrounded by stacks of old collectibles and files, she turned to me and said something that caught me off guard. Eli, would you ever leave this town? I blinked. What? I mean, if everything blows up, if Nathan turns the whole town against you, would you go? Would you start over somewhere else? I shook my head slowly. I built this from scratch. With my bare hands, I won't let him take it. She nodded, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't just asking about escape. She was asking if she could be part of the future. The next morning, Nathan arrived. His BMW rolled up my gravel driveway like a shark through still water. He stepped out, dressed in some Italian designer suit that didn't fit the dirt under his shoes. He didn't knock. He walked right up to the porch where I was sanding down an old cedar bench and said, Well, ain't this cute? I stood, calm, controlled, like the air before a hurricane. Nathan. He smirked. You always had a way of making garbage look rustic. Cut to it, I said. Why are you really here? He stepped forward. Because you're trying to steal what's mine. Savannah isn't a thing, Nathan. She was with me, he snapped.
Had a plan.
A life. You think she wants this? Think she wants oil stains and chicken wire fences? She made her choice, I said. And it wasn't you. For a moment, his eyes flickered in gur, mixed with something that looked like betrayal. Then his voice dropped low. Then maybe it's time everyone knew what kind of man you really are. My stomach tightened. You sure you want to go there? Oh, I do, he whispered. Tell the town how you pulled a gun on me. Tell them how you nearly killed your brother over a girl. I stared at him, unblinking. Go ahead, but just know, I already filed a full report with the sheriff. My story? With evidence? He stepped back, jaw clenched. You wouldn't. I did. Silence stretched between us like a live wire. You're pathetic, he hissed. Still living in your own fantasy. No, I said. I'm living in a life I built. You're just mad it wasn't yours. He turned, storming back to the car. But before he opened the door, he looked back. This isn't over, Eli. And then he drove off. Savannah stepped out from behind the door. She'd heard it all. You okay? She asked. I nodded. For the first time in a long time, yeah. She walked to me, slid her arms around my waist, and rested her head on my shoulder. We stood like that for a long time, as the wind rustled through the trees. But deep in my gut, I knew Nathan wasn't done, and the next move wouldn't be so easy to deflect. 3 days passed, 3 days of silence. But silence wasn't peace. It was a fuse burning down. Savannah stayed at the cabin with me, helping with work, sorting inventory, even cooking dinner on the tiny gas stove. We laughed. We planned. We kissed. But underneath it all, the tension was coiled like a trap. And on the 4th day, it snapped. It started with a call from the bank. "Mr. Whitaker, we're contacting you regarding unusual activity on your business account." "What kind of activity?" I asked, my stomach clenching. "There was an attempted wire transfer this morning, $78,000, flagged as suspicious. Do you recognize the name NTR Strategic Holdings?" I froze. NTR. Nathan Thomas Reed, my brother. He tried to steal from me. I slammed the phone down. This wasn't some emotional breakdown. This was war. I went straight to Sheriff Dean. He listened, quiet and still, as I showed him the email confirmation of the blocked transfer attempt. Then I gave him copies of old texts from Nathan, messages where he bragged about setting up dummy companies for fast cash. The sheriff finally leaned back, eyes sharp. "This boy's gone too far." "I don't care about the money," I said. "But he's trying to destroy my life, and I'm not going to stand by anymore." Your sheriff gave a slow nod. "You want me to bring him in?" I shook my head. "No, I want him to see I'm not afraid of him anymore." That night I posted a video on my personal Facebook account, just 2 minutes long. I didn't say his name. I didn't get angry. I just stood in front of my workbench, hands dirty from fixing an old Ford, and said, "Sometimes the world tries to tell you that what you do for a living defines your worth. But I've learned that worth comes from what you build, not what you brag about. I'm proud to be a mechanic, a builder, a man who helps, not hurts. I built a life out of patience, out of love, out of grit. And if you've ever been told you're not enough, don't believe it. You are. Keep building. Let the liars sink in their own noise. No names, no drama, just truth." And it went viral. In Hollow Creek terms, anyway. Within a day, over 3,000 shares. Comments from people I hadn't seen in years. "Eli, you always were the real one. My dad still talks about how you fixed his truck for free during that snowstorm. I never liked Nathan anyway." And then, a direct message. From a name I hadn't seen in years. Maggie O'Connell, my high school friend and Nathan's ex-girlfriend. Her message was simple. "Eli, I need to talk to you. It's about Nathan. I've been holding something in for too long." We met the next morning at a dusty diner off Route 6. Maggie had aged, like we all had, but her eyes still burned with that same wildfire she carried back in school. She ordered black coffee, no sugar. "I should have said something years ago," she said, hands trembling, "but I was scared of what Nathan would do." "What happened?" She looked around, then leaned in close. "That night, the one with the shotgun, you didn't pull it, did you?" I stared at her. "Why would you ask that?" "Because Nathan told me a year later, said he was the one who grabbed it. Said you saved his life by taking the blame." My blood ran cold. He admitted that. Swore me to silence. Said if I ever told, he'd ruin me. And he could have. He had dirt on people. Photos, messages. He's manipulative, Eli. And worse, he's dangerous. I felt like the diner walls were closing in. Because now the truth had witnesses. It wasn't just my life at stake anymore. Back at the cabin, Savannah listened silently as I told her everything Maggie said. Then she did something that surprised me. She pulled out her phone and started recording. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Protecting you," she said. "He's going to twist this. We need to get ahead of it." She turned the camera toward me and said softly, "Tell the truth, Eli. All of it." And I did. For the first time, I told the camera what Nathan did, what he said. I kept it quiet to protect him. And how he tried to destroy me the moment he saw me standing on solid ground. When I finished, Savannah posted the video to her LinkedIn account. Her Twitter and her own blog, which as I'd forgotten, had thousands of followers. It didn't take long. Within hours, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Dozens of messages. From Nathan's old coworkers, from people he ghosted on debts, from a guy he sucker punched at a college bar and paid off to stay silent. They were speaking up. The golden boy was unraveling. And then came the email. From Nathan. Just made the worst mistake of your life. I stared at the screen. Savannah leaned in. He's desperate. That's a good sign. But I wasn't smiling, because desperate people do stupid things. And Nathan had never been afraid to burn things down if he couldn't own them. It rained hard that night. Thick Carolina rain, the kind that drums on rooftops like war drums and turns dirt roads into rivers. I couldn't sleep. Neither could Savannah. We lay in bed, fully clothed, waiting for a sound, a knock, a shatter, and just after 2 a.m., it came. Not a knock. A crash. Glass would a scream. I bolted from the bed, heart hammering like a jackhammer in my chest. The side window of the cabin was shattered, and a cinder block lay on the floor wrapped in wet paper. Savannah picked it up with trembling hands and unwrapped it. On the paper, scrawled in black marker, were 5 words. You took everything from me. I didn't need a signature. Nathan had finally crossed the line from words to war. By morning, Sheriff Dean had secured the property and dusted for prints, but he already knew who did it. There's a storm coming, he said, standing in the doorway. I'm not talking about the weather. I don't care if he rots in jail, I said. But I'm done playing defense. The sheriff nodded once. Then play it smart. You've got the whole town behind you now. Don't stoop to his level. But I was already thinking ahead. Nathan wouldn't stop until he was humiliated or erased. So I planned the one thing he'd never expect. A confrontation. In public, with the truth. That Saturday was the Hollow Creek Fall Marketan annual event that brought everyone out for kettle corn, cider, and gossip. It was held in the town square, hay bales for benches, and a tiny wooden stage for announcements, music, and the occasional mayoral speech. I reserved 5 minutes on that stage. Savannah tried to talk me out of it. Eli, you don't owe anyone a public explanation? No, I said, but I owe myself peace. And more than that, I knew Nathan would be there, watching, lurking, waiting to spin the story once more. It was time to end the game. The sky was still gray that morning, thick with wind and the scent of wet bark. I wore my work boots, grease-stained jeans, and a clean button-down. No suit, no polish.
Oh, just me.
The crowd gathered slowly. Kids with sticky fingers. Old couples bundled in flannel. Friends, enemies, and somewhere near the back, Nathan. He wore sunglasses, but I'd know that stance anywhere, arms folded, smug smirk just waiting to snap into a sneer. When I stepped on the stage, the chatter quieted. I looked out over the faces of my town, people I'd fixed tires for, built shelves for, watched baseball with, people who had never really known who I was beneath the oil-stained shirt. I took a breath and I told them everything. Not the drama, it's the truth. I told them about growing up in Hollow Creek, about loving this town even when it didn't love me back, about building a life in silence, out of patience, grit, and late nights with ledger books and broken engines. I told them about Savannah, about how she helped spark a fire in me I never knew I had. And finally, I told them about that night, 12 years ago, the shotgun, the scream, the silence that followed. I looked out and said, I took the blame that night, because I thought protecting my brother meant protecting my family. I was wrong. Protecting someone doesn't mean erasing yourself. The wind blew soft and cold as the truth echoed off the wooden beams. I'm not a hero, I'm not perfect, but I'm not a liar. I won't let anyone rewrite my story again. The crowd was silent. Not shocked, not angry, just quiet. And then slowly, steadily applause began. From the front row, from the back, from old men in denim and young women in hoodies. And it built. A wave of sound crashing through years of being invisible. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just the quiet, greasy kid from Hollow Creek. I was seen. Nathan didn't clap. He didn't even blink. But he stepped forward after the crowd dispersed, sunglasses now gone, and rage smoldering in his eyes. Oh, it was cute, he hissed. You put on a show? You think they love you now? No, I said. I don't care if they do. You're dead to me, he spat. You'll regret every second of this. I smiled. Good, I said. Now I can finally live. He lunged, fist cocked back, but the sheriff was already there, grabbing him mid-swing. Not today, Sheriff Dean growled. Nathan roared, as he was dragged away, eyes wild, screaming threats I no longer needed to hear, because he'd already lost. That night, Savannah and I sat by the creek, watching the water shimmer under the stars. She took my hand quietly. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I'm lighter." She rested her head on my shoulder. "You deserve to be happy, Eli. You always did." I looked down at her, the moonlight catching the edge of her smile, and for the first time in years, I believed it. But just as peace settled in, she whispered, "There's something I never told you." I turned slowly. "What?" She looked at me, her voice barely above a breath. "The night I left Hollow Creek, I didn't go alone. Everything froze in that moment. The crackle of the creek, the night wind slipping through the trees. My heart caught between a beat and a breakdown. "You didn't go alone?" I repeated, my voice barely mine. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Savannah looked up, her eyes wet but steady. "I left with a secret, Eli, and I've carried it for 12 years. I wanted to tell you that first night back, but I was scared." "Scared of what? Of losing you again?" She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. It was creased, faded, like it had been opened 100 times, maybe more. My fingers trembled as I took it. A little boy, dark-haired, big brown eyes, smiling in front of an old A-frame cabin that looked achingly familiar. "His name is Caleb," Savannah whispered. "He's 11. Yours." I didn't breathe. Couldn't. "I found out I was pregnant right after I got the job in Charlotte," she continued. "I didn't want to hold you back. He had your whole life in Hollow Creek. I thought I was doing the right thing giving him stability. A city, a future. But I kept your photo in his room. I told him stories. He knows who you are." The weight of her words sank into my bones. I stared at that photo like it was a window into another life, a life I'd missed, a son I never knew. You had my kid?" I said finally, the words breaking apart in my throat. She nodded. "He's smart, Eli. He's kind. He loves to tinker with machines and sketch out business ideas. He's you." My heart swelled and cracked at the same time. All those years I spent building wealth in silence, hiding from family, counting dollars like they'd fill the emptiness. None of it prepared me for this moment. I had a son, and I'd never held him. "I want to meet him," I said, voice hoarse. Savannah let out a shaky laugh. "I was hoping you'd say that." 2 days later, we drove back to Charlotte. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they needed to. My mind ran wild with every possible version of what this boy might say. Was he angry, curious, indifferent? We pulled up to a modest brick home in the suburbs. Caleb was outside, kicking a soccer ball against the garage door. When he saw Savannah step out of the car, he smiled and waved. Then he saw me. His face froze. Savannah called out, "Caleb, honey. This is Eli, the man I told you about." The boy looked between us. Then, carefully, he walked over, his brows furrowed in curiosity. "You're the guy who built the cabin?" he asked. I nodded. "I did." "With my own hands?" He looked down. "Mom said you like fixing cars?" "Still do," I replied. "Want to see pictures of my garage?" He paused, then gave the tiniest smile. "Sure." We sat on the porch for an hour, flipping through photos on my phone, my workshop. The Mustang rebuild, the treehouse I built out back. Caleb asked questions, lots of them. When I told him I had a rare 1940s Pepsi-Cola sign, his jaw dropped. "No way, that's like one of the most valuable sets." I grinned. "You know your collectibles?" He nodded. "I've been selling baseball cards online. Made $70 last month." My heart almost burst. We kept talking until the sun dipped low. As we got up to leave, Caleb looked at me and said, "You gonna come back?" I crouched down to his level, eyes locked on his. "Only if you want me to." He nodded, slowly. "Yeah, I think I'd like that." A month passed, and everything changed. I started driving to Charlotte every weekend. Sometimes Savannah and Caleb came to Hollow Creek instead. We built a treehouse together. Taught Caleb how to change a tire. Savannah helped me open a small community investment fund, one that taught local teens how to save, build credit, and flip vintage goods. The town saw us as a family now, and I felt for the first time like I belonged. Not because I earned it, but because I stopped hiding. On a warm spring morning, Savannah sat beside me on the porch. Caleb was down by the creek, skipping stones. She leaned into my shoulder and whispered, "You think things could have been different if I told you back then?" I looked at her, at the woman who broke my heart and rebuilt it better. "At the time, I would have resented you," I admitted. "Now I'm just glad I get to be here." She smiled. "Me too." And then, after a long silence, she said, "He asked me yesterday if he could call you Dad." My throat closed up. "And what did you say?" "Told him it was up to him." I looked down at her, my voice quiet. "I'll wait as long as it takes." She squeezed my hand. "He won't make you wait long." So here I am, small-town mechanic. A man who was almost erased by his own family and reborn through the truth. I lost a brother, but I found a son. I was overlooked, but now I am seen. And as I sit in my backyard watching my kid drag a broken lawnmower across the yard to see if he can fix it, I can't help but wonder, is it ever too late to become the man you were meant to be? Let me know what you think in the comments.